This is the moment I have been waiting for. The release of Absolute Green Lantern. I was so excited because not only is this Al Ewing, but it's also my favorite Green Lantern, Joe Malene. Welcome back, everybody. If you don't know me, hello, my name's Amanda. Some people know me as Vamp. That's technically my username, VampX13. I love vampires. And today we are going to be talking about another thing that I love, just Green Lantern. And Joe Malene. Actually just got my deluxe copy of Far Sector. So freaking beautiful. Love this series. Also by N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell. N.K. Jemisin is like an amazing writer. Jamal Campbell, amazing artist. Also now writing Zatanna. Anyways, I could gush about Green Lantern all day, but we're not here to talk about Far Sector. We're here to talk about Absolute Green Lantern. So let's do that. So Absolute Green Lantern issue number 1 is written by Al Ewing with art by Jahnoy Lindsay and letters by Lucas Gattoni. This comic is interesting. And I do have one issue with it, which I will get to at the end of my video. But before we do that, first of all, spoilers in effect, because I am going to be talking about everything that happens in this comic. And number 2, let me tell you about the synopsis. FYI, really spoilers. So basically what happens in this story is we are introduced to some, not just one, but some main continuity Green Lanterns, characters that have played Green Lantern in the main continuity, starting off with Hal Jordan. Now here, Hal is wandering in the desert, and I gotta say, the main continuity Green Lanterns that appear, not all of them seem to be lanterns here. Something has happened in Evergreen, Nevada, which is where Hal is from, and he is walking through the desert on foot. That's how bad whatever happened is. We don't know what it is, but we know while he's walking, he is stopped by a cop. The cop basically sees that his hand's in his pocket, and he just asks him to remove his hand from his pocket. He just wants to make sure he's not holding anything that's scary, that's a weapon, anything like that. But Hal seems to be resistant to this. And in the end, all we know is that the officer meets an untimely end after trying to get Hal to take his hand out of his pocket, and basically trying to arrest him for not doing that. Hal eventually ends up at a diner. He asks for some water because he's been walking out in the desert for a while, and there's a big announcement on the news that Evergreen has basically been kind of crushed by an alien spaceship that looks like the Green Lantern symbol. Flashback to 5 days ago. Hal is having lunch with his friends, Joe Malene and John Stewart, and they're also talking about their other friend, Guy Gardner, who is not here, but who is name dropped. While they're having this lunch, they're talking about Joe's recent return to Evergreen, coming back from Coast City after some stuff went down there, and a dome kind of falls on the entire town. A biker that is riding around basically hits the dome and is completely obliterated, and the characters that we're introduced to now have to deal with the situation. We go back to the present day. Hal is still in this diner, and he's revealed that he knows some stuff about what's going on in Evergreen, and as he's being questioned about it, things escalate and he finds himself threatened. This is when we find out that the reason why Hal's hand was in his pocket is because it's the Black Hand, which some people may have also guessed from the way the cover looks, may have guessed from the fact that this story is called Episode 1, The Black Hand, for those people that are familiar with the Green Lantern mythos. But for those who aren't, this is probably a pretty surprising moment. Hal doesn't seem to have any control over his hand. He tells us that Abin Sur gave him this weapon. He doesn't know why. And basically everyone gets obliterated. Oh yeah, the ship that landed on the diner, we also see it in the 5-day ago flashback, and who is with it? None other than Abin Sur, which is, yes, where Hal seems to have gotten the Black Hand from. After he messes up like all the people in this diner, Joe Malene arrives, and she seems to be the Green Lantern. And then that's where it ends. That's basically it. So obviously it ends with the thing that I was kind of most excited about for the issue, which we don't get a lot of in it, but we're gonna talk about some things that I really loved about this, and sort of my thoughts on how this story kind of goes and flows, if you will. Let's start off with the horror elements here. Now, I love the horror elements. I also feel like with a cosmic character like Green Lantern, there are so many cool possibilities of what you can do with that horror approach. And I feel like, while I wasn't initially a big fan of the art when I saw the preview for this story, I really feel that it fits the tone of the story very well. It's kind of giving me like a horror kind of manga vibe to it. I know that everyone's not going to be super into it because I do feel like it's pretty stylized, but I will say this issue had it growing on me a little bit more, and I think it's going to be like similar to my response to Absolute Wonder Woman. When I first saw that art, I didn't really like it, and then as I kept kind of reading the story, I saw how the art really fits the tone of the story. I also really like the faces. I feel like the faces can be really creepy at times here and really emotional. I like the eyes a lot. I also really like how Hal is very present in this story, even though I am a Joe fan. I think that a lot of people actually would have been upset if Hal Jordan wasn't kind of somewhere in here. And not only is he somewhere in here, he's a very important role, I think, in this story. I think he's going to have a key role here. He's going to still be integral, so there's still a lot of importance with Hal Jordan in it. And the other thing that I like is that he feels very different. Like, him being the Black Hand, that's not what I would have ever guessed or expected. I think some of us were thinking Parallax, but the Black Hand, that's interesting. Also, for some reason, he's a toy collector. I don't know if he's gonna be like revealing that he has like an amazing toy plane collection, but that is alluded to in this issue, that he's a toy collector, and it's weird, but I feel like I kind of like how weird it is. John is also really cool in this issue. John Stewart appears, and he is also an architect here, so there's that similarity. But while he feels like the same character at his core, I just feel like this is a bit of a different perspective on him a little bit. There's a wisdom to him. There's this kind of timeless sense and this calm. He's still the Rock that we know him to be in the main continuity. You still get that vibe from him, but he's also got like kind of dad vibes here. He just feels like the same character, but slightly different in a way that is a bit refreshing. Of course, we only get a little bit of him here. I hope we get more of him. I also hope we get some kind of John Stewart sass built in. John Stewart, I find, can be sassy, and I do love his sass. So hopefully we don't lose that. I also love Abin Sur's design in this. Abin Sur just looks so weird, so alien, and I love it. It was also giving me kind of Dragon Ball Z vibes. It was giving me a little bit of Frieza. I don't know if that's weird. Even though, you know, I don't know that Abin Sur is going to be a villain here. I don't know. I love that I don't know, but definitely an interesting design choice. What I really love about this issue is the mysteries that they're building. There are so many whys about what is happening. This is also something that I think adds to the horror tone of the entire comic, because although there are a lot of questions that are unanswered, it's actually what makes the mystery that much more disturbing, that much more compelling. The fact that we don't know why things are happening. So like, horrible stuff is just happening and we don't know why. It makes it more unsettling, more ominous. We don't know why Joe really left Coast City. We know that she was married to someone and maybe something happened with that. We don't know why Hal Jordan became the Black Hand, why Abin Sur gave him that power. We don't know why Abin Sur came here. Is Abin Sur looking for someone to take over the Green Lantern mantle? Probably there's something totally different going on, I think. I think it's going to be similar, but not anything that we would be able to anticipate. The only thing that I'm really anticipating in this story is that as we go on with each issue, just like how issue 1 is more focused on Hal Jordan, I think issue 2 is going to be more about our character that comes in at the end. I think it's going to be more about Joe. And I think because we've been introduced to a few other, characters from the Lantern mythos that are important, like John Stewart and Guy Gardner, while I'm not sure if they're going to be Green Lanterns here or anything like that, I think they're each also going to get an issue. And as we learn more about the mysteries of this horror that's happening in Evergreen and what's going on with that, we're going to learn a little bit more about these characters and get attached to them. But it's really the mystery that brings us in, which is kind of different than some of the other books that we've gotten, because I feel with something like The Flash, it has a similar pacing to The Flash, this book, a little bit to me, but with The Flash, we're kind of pulled in more for the characters, whereas this, we're pulled in more for the story of what's happening. And it also feels a bit similar to something like Absolute Superman, in the sense that this first issue doesn't give us a ton, but it is setting what I think is going to be a solid groundwork for a longer story, a longer run. I just feel that Al Ewing is also one of those characters that, when the books start, they're not necessarily like super, super hot, but as they build, build, they become more and more intense, more weird, especially with cosmic stuff. He can go really in depth on things. And by the, 10th issue or so, I'd say you're probably going to be just completely engulfed in whatever's happening, completely tapped into it, to the point that someone will ask you something casual about it, and you're going to go into this long, intense explanation about everything that's happening, because also for you to really understand everything, it's like we start off simple and things get more complex as we go, which I'm very excited to see what will happen with Green Lantern. I just think there's so much potential with this character, and I feel like it's such a good creative team that I'm so far, based on what I'm seeing. Now, my one nitpick with this issue is just that with this issue, it's a lot of pages for not as much story. I actually pulled this out and thought, wow, that's a heavy issue. There's quite a few pages in here. Sounds like it's going to be really dense. It was not as dense as something like Absolute Martian Manhunter, where every panel feels like there's so much information in those visuals. There's so much depth, even though there's mystery there. This is a little bit more focused on these big moments of action. And while I do feel that that works, it did leave me a little bit disappointed because I just wanted more. So by the time it ends, like I was like, oh, that's it? Like, I want to know more about Joe. I want to know more about like where we're going with it. But I understand why they did it that way, because I feel like the absence of knowledge is what makes those moments really impactful in this book. Like seeing Hal pull his hand out and reveal that he is the Black Hand, only to basically announce that he can't control it, he can't stop it, he doesn't know why this is happening to him, and then everything is destroyed around him, and he's just trapped kind of in that moment. That's horrifying. That is straight up terror. And I love all of that. So I think it fits with the pacing, but just based on what I wanted out of it, I was a bit disappointed. I do think that as it goes on, though, it's going to get better, because there's just going to be more and more that's going to build on itself. So that was really my only complaint, was that it felt a little bit short, and the pacing was like a little more action, I guess, based. I don't know, but that feels more of a preference, really. Some people, I think, are gonna have the same vibes with this, but remember, Al Ewing, over time, if you invest, you will be rewarded. Also, just Al Ewing doing Cosmic has definitely earned his stripes, so I think that is going to be so good. Overall, I'd give this issue a 4 out of 5. It wasn't my favorite of the first issues, but I see potential in this book in terms of a long run. So I would encourage you, if you were like me and you were kind of feeling like this wasn't as good for me, stick with it, because I do think we will be rewarded for putting the time in. Same feelings that I basically have for like Superman, right? I think they're both going to be kind of more of a slow build book, and then once you get into it, it's going to be just madness. But especially with Ewing, it's gonna really be madness once we get into it. That's all I really have on this one. Let me know what you're thinking of Green Lantern issue number 1. Who is your favorite Green Lantern that appears here? Who are you hoping you're gonna get to see more of? Are there some Green Lanterns that haven't been name dropped yet that you really love? Or just other lanterns in general? Will we get more than just Green Lanterns? And what will that be like? I'd love to hear your thoughts and your theories. Let me know down in the comments. And if you haven't checked it out, I have also done a video on Absolute Martian Manhunter number 1. You really are gonna wanna check this out. The art is on a whole other plane of existence. I'll see you next time, and until then, friends, stay nerdy. Bye!